Today, we will send out international arrest warrants for the first suspects that we will prosecute. They will also be placed on national and international wanted lists. And because of that, we will reveal their full names and we will show you their pictures. All 4 suspects were in eastern Ukraine. They played a crucial part in the armed conflict, and they had important positions.
And now we can go to Kiev and speak to our correspondent Gulliver Cragg. Gulliver, what can you tell me about the 4 people charged?
Well, of the 3 Russian citizens, one of them, Igor Girkin, also known as Strelkov, is very well known here in Ukraine. He was the defense minister of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic at that time and a former officer of the Russian FSB. The other 2 are former officers of the Russian military intelligence service, the GRU. They're called Sergei Dubinsky and Oleg Pulatov. All 3 of them, though Russian citizens, were present in eastern Ukraine at that time and were working with the Donetsk separatists, the Russian-backed separatists. Now, you know, the saying goes, there's no such thing as a former Russian military intelligence officer. A lot of people here in Ukraine think that they were actually answering directly to Moscow and still in the employ of the Russian services. And there is also one Ukrainian citizen, Leonid Harchenko, who is a Ukrainian citizen who had joined up with the Donetsk separatists. These are 4 people who've been charged. This is not necessarily the last people who are going to be charged. The investigators said that these 4 men were following instructions from Moscow. None of the people who've been charged is somebody who was actually in Moscow at that time, but it's not out of the question that somebody will be in the future, because all of the investigators' work over these past 5 years have pointed very clearly to this having been a Russian surface-to-air missile system that was brought in to eastern Ukraine from Russia, and that could not possibly have been done without the knowledge of the Russian military command.
And Gulliver, what are Ukraine's expectations from this process?
Well, apart from justice, obviously, for the families, the victims' families, I think that Ukraine hopes that this is a situation that sheds a lot of light internationally on the way Russia has behaved in this conflict, particularly the way that Russia seeks to spread lies over the internet. A record number of bots were mobilized immediately after this plane came down. At first, the separatists thought that they'd shot down a Ukrainian military plane and were celebrating. Then, when it became evident that that was not the case, very quickly that was scrambled, and there was a huge effort online to put forward alternative versions. And Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, is still saying that numerous versions exist, versions in which it could have been the Ukrainians' fault, versions of various different degrees of plausibility, but which have all basically been ruled out by these very thorough investigations that have been taking place. Now, if Russia sticks to its line that it's not responsible and refuses to send these 3 citizens to the Netherlands for trial, then that will be a good argument on Ukraine's side for saying, look at the way the Russians behave, and encouraging the West to keep up sanctions against Russia, and also to not allow Russia back into the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. That's something that Emmanuel Macron has said he's in favor of, but in Ukraine, they're really up in arms about it. The Ukrainian authorities think that would be very bad news, and they're campaigning strongly for Russia not to be readmitted.